Well, friends, happy Sunday evening. Thanks for joining me. We're going to have a good discussion tonight, and God bless you for all you're doing for this election. Most important one of our lifetimes. It has arrived. This one is it. Most important one for our country, and for various reasons that we're going to be explaining to you over the next 3 weeks. Now, we've been talking a lot for months and months for years actually, about this election, and now we're down to the final home stretch. Just 3 weeks and 3 days, and you're all involved. We're all involved together, and we're going to bring about a great victory, but we have to work very hard at it. Let's begin by prayer. I have my book, Pro-Life Reflections for Every Day. It can be yours as well. And let's turn to see this reflection here from the book of James, the letter of James, chapter 2, verse 10, says, "Whoever observes the whole law, but trips up on a single point, is held guilty of breaking it all." Reflection. Suppose a political candidate said that although he personally opposed terrorism, he thought the terrorists had a right to do what they did. What kind of support do you think this candidate would have? Certain positions of candidates so clearly contradict the good of the nation that the candidate's other positions, though they may be good, don't matter. Let us pray. Spirit of wisdom, fill your people, fill their candidates, and fill their leaders. Amen. Well, if you go to ProLifeReflectionsForEveryday.com, you can order this book. We'll send it to you, and I'll be happy to personalize it for you. Well, let's go to the board here. I have some good news to tell you. We have been asking for, especially last couple of weeks, for you to join ArmyForTrump.com. Now, we've been telling you all along, and we've been talking, and I know many of you have been doing it, about taking practical steps to help the campaign, taking practical steps to educate and mobilize voters. And now we're in the get out the vote period of time because early voting has already begun. Some 9 million of our fellow citizens have already voted. There'll be a million more every day. We've got, of course, 9 million is nowhere near what we're going to get in this election. It's expected that we may have 160 million Americans voting by the time this election is over. But we've got 9 already, and early voting is underway. The point is that now is the time for voter-to-voter contact. That's the best way that we help a campaign. And if you go to ArmyForTrump.com, you're able to sign up for and receive training for various kinds of activities. Some of it is social media activity, but also making phone calls and knocking on doors to a pre-selected list of voters that you'll have training in doing it. Well, I'm glad to report to you that the campaign has had in the last week more people sign up for this than ever. And I'm sure that many of those who've signed up have been the people that you have talked to, that we have talked to through these programs. We're sending out emails. I want to ask you to double down on your efforts, triple your efforts. Think about people right while we're talking here tonight, starting with yourself if you're able, and then think about others. Send out an email. To your email list, send out word in your social media. Ask people, if they want to see the president reelected. It's not just that we're going to vote for him. It's that we've got to reach other voters. And again, they'll give you all the training that you need. They're going to be really amping up the phone calls and the knocking on the doors. So ArmyForTrump.com, would you be part of that army? Sign up today. Go there. Check it out. And you can get training to make phone calls, knock on doors, be active on social media, and you'll see other things there as well. Let's take our enthusiasm, let's take our prayers, and let's translate it into this kind of action. This is so needed. Do you know that the Trump campaign right now, this re-election effort of 2020, has knocked on more doors and made more phone calls than any presidential race in American history? This president breaks so many records, and here's yet another one. More than any other in American history. I mean, that's unbelievable. Let's continue making history together. So this is the first thing I wanted to let you know about. Let's go back to the chair, and I want to read a quote for you. I'm going to share you some websites too to counteract some of the lies that are told about President Trump and enable you to set some of your friends straight on some of these things. But I want to read here, and this is a quote from the Catholic bishops of the United States. By the way, I want to welcome all of you that are watching on Alveda King's channel. She works with us full time. This is her ministry, Priests for Life. And she's been working with us for 15 years, and so we bring you these programs on all the different platforms of social media of our Priests for Life ministry, of which Alveda is the director of the Civil Rights for the Unborn, as those of you who follow her know. So welcome those of you that are watching on her channels, as well as everybody on all the other channels. I want to read you a quote from the Catholic bishops of the United States in one of their many documents about voting, called Faithful Citizenship, okay? Here's what they said. The church is engaged in the political process. Now, for those, and every program we have people asking me, why do you have a priest talking about politics? Well, the bishops just gave you an answer. The church is engaged in the political process, but should not be used. We welcome dialogue with political leaders and candidates. We seek to engage and persuade public officials. Let me pause there. That's why you'll see them getting together. Public officials, candidates, getting together with bishops and cardinals and so forth, even the Pope. They say we seek to engage and persuade public officials. And then they go on to say this. Events and photo ops cannot substitute for serious dialogue. Events and photo ops cannot substitute for serious dialogue. Have you seen any photo ops lately? I can think of one. We got this Catholic candidate running by the name of Biden, and he releases in his political ads pictures of him with the Pope. That is not the way the church wants to be used in politics. The Pope is a head of state. The Vatican City State is a separate country. It's not Italy. It's its own country. So the Pope is not only the spiritual leader of the Catholic Church, he is the civic leader of Vatican City State. And in that capacity, he meets with other heads of state, whether he agrees with them or not. He meets with other heads of state, just like all the other heads of state meet with other heads of state. And so it's not surprising that Biden was in the presence of the Pope, just like Obama was, and just like President Trump was. Being in the physical presence of the Pope, so first of all, let's back up. Biden doesn't have any advantage on that over President Trump, because President Trump visited with the Pope as well, and they sat down and talked and so forth. The Pope's physical presence with somebody should not be used to imply that he's endorsing their positions. But shamelessly, Biden and his campaign and the so-called Catholics for Biden, talk about twisting, have been using this ad, and it's very, very contrary to what the bishops are saying here. I just want to let you know the church is not pleased with this. The church is engaged in the political process, but should not be used. We welcome dialogue with political leaders and candidates. We seek to engage and persuade public officials. Events and photo ops cannot substitute for serious dialogue. I wonder how serious dialogue is taking place between the Biden campaign and Pope Francis about the way that Biden wants to shut down the freedom of the church. And notice how deceptive this is. Let me go back to the board and keep this Army for Trump up there. Please sign up and spread the word about that. Thank you. But this HHS mandate, I've talked about it many times before, essentially the Obama-Biden administration telling groups like us, telling the Archdiocese of Washington, telling the Diocese of Pittsburgh and Erie, Pennsylvania, telling Catholic University of America, telling Thomas Aquinas College, telling all kinds of Christian ministries and employers throughout the country that in the health insurance they offer their employees, they have to include contraceptives and some forms of early abortion. All right, we said no. We had to fight it all the way up the way into court. President Trump exempted these ministries from that requirement. So President Trump, defended our religious freedom. Obama and Biden suppressed it. The Supreme Court upheld what President Trump did. Said, hey, religious freedom is the law of the land. Biden said, I'll put it back. Now, he'll put back, claiming to be a devout Catholic, Pope Francis Catholic, he'll put back a mandate that forces Catholics to violate their faith, or to have to choose between violating their faith and violating the law. Now, I want to show you how deceptive he is and how dangerous. Because when the Supreme Court recently upheld what President Trump did in exempting those of us who have religious and moral objections to this mandate, exempting us from it, Biden spoke out. And that's when he said, I'm going to put it back. I'm going to put the mandate back the way it was. And then he said in his quote that it would include the exemptions because the original mandate did have exemptions. The problem wasn't that it didn't have exemptions. The problem was that it didn't have exemptions for everybody who objected, only for some. In fact, it had exemptions for some who did not object at all, and not exemptions for others who did object. Plus, some of the exemptions, the way that they were applied in such a way that is contrary to our faith. In other words, we were still put in a position, even with they called it an accommodation, but the bottom line, without getting into too much detail, is that we were still put in a position where, according to our own religious beliefs, we were in violation of the faith. We were in violation of the moral law. And we told the government, it's not your job to tell us whether or not this violates our faith. It's your job to protect our right to live our faith. Now, here's what's deceptive about what Biden said. He said, oh yeah, well, and I'll put it back, including the exemptions. He makes it sound like he's doing something better than President Trump did. He makes it sound like, oh, well, I'm putting back the exemptions. I'm more in favor of the religious freedom than President Trump is. But exactly, it's just the opposite. Because what he's not saying is that it was precisely the way that some of these accommodations worked that was the very objection that we had. You see, the Obama administration, Obama-Biden, put into effect an accommodation for religious groups that still required us to participate in the process of our employees receiving contraceptives and abortions, early abortions. We can't be part of that. It doesn't matter if you want to call it an accommodation or not. Call it whatever you want. When we looked at that, we said we can't be in part of this. So the man is not explaining it. He's not explaining. He's not being straightforward. He's not being honest. He's not being honest. So what I want to know from the Catholics for Biden, or the believers for Biden, his campaign has these various groups. Has he explained it to you guys? Catholics out there jumping up and down for Biden, and some priests and sisters going there to pray at the Democrat convention. Oh yeah, no, I'm not going there in order to endorse, I'm just going there to pray. Right, as if most people in the American public can tell the difference just by looking at the TV and saying, oh, there's a Catholic priest. What in the world difference does it make? what comes across very clearly is support for the Democrats. But do they explain it to you? Do they explain to these Catholics jumping up and down for Biden how what he's going to do is put them in a position where they have to violate that very same Catholic faith that they want to go around waving the flag for? This is deceitful. This is dishonest. Actually, it's disgraceful. The other thing, of course, that Biden needs to tell his Catholic friends is that he has no exceptions regarding abortion. That is, no limitations. No limitations. The American people have never, not for one day, not for 1 hour, ever agreed with a policy that allows abortion without any limitations. We're talking about no time limitations. In other words, you can abort a baby throughout pregnancy. No medical limitations. You can be a healthy mom of a healthy baby right up through the 9th month. And no circumstantial limitations. Well, you can't have an abortion if you don't like the gender of the baby or you don't like the race of the child, or the child has a disability that you don't like. None of these limitations whatsoever, nor any limitations regarding an abortion of a minor, or maybe the parents ought to be involved first. Most states have parental involvement laws. Biden would do away with those, as with the whole Democrat Party. No limitations on taxpayer funding of abortion. You know, healthy mom, healthy baby, latest stages of pregnancy, not only can she have an abortion, but you've got to pay for it. And on it goes. I want to know how honest he's being with his Catholic supporters on his view of abortion. Let's go to the seat for a moment here. You know, let's go back to this statement of the bishops. We welcome dialogue and seek to engage and persuade public officials. Doesn't matter that Biden saw the Pope. That makes no difference whatsoever. That should have absolutely no weight in anybody's vote. What matters is he engaging the church on this matter, and is the church engaging him? That's what counts, not a photo op. So we really have to be careful, brothers and sisters, as to not let our faith in our church be used in this particular way. Okay. Now I want to show you a couple. Let's go to the next topic. I want to show you a couple of websites and read for you. Now this goes back a few years. We're going to see a quote from the president, statement right on his White House website. Let's put it up there now. You can see remarks by the president on the mass shootings in Texas and Ohio. This was back in the summer of 2019. Let's go down, and the president, let's scroll down nice and slow. I want to find a paragraph here that I want to quote for you. And he prays for the victims, he and the First Lady. Let's see. These barbaric slaughters, he says, are an assault upon our communities, an attack upon our nation, and a crime against all of humanity. We are outraged and sickened by this monstrous evil. Again, this was back in 2019. The cruelty, the hatred, the malice, the bloodshed, and the terror. Our hearts are shattered for every family whose parents, children, husbands, and wives were ripped from their arms and their lives. America weeps for the fallen. Okay, he talks about invoking God, thanking the law enforcement, talking with the officials in Texas. Let's keep going down. Keep going. He talks about the shooter in El Paso posted a manifesto online, consumed by racist hate. Now listen to this, read these words of the president. In one voice, our nation must condemn racism, bigotry, and white supremacy. Let's put those words towards the top of the screen. Again, you see those, and maybe we can highlight those words, that paragraph there. Right. In one voice, our nation must condemn racism, bigotry, and white supremacy. These sinister ideologies must be defeated. Hate has no place in America. Hatred warps the mind, ravages the heart, and devours the soul. Again, in one voice, our nation must condemn racism, bigotry, and white supremacy. Now, this is one of multiple statements that the president has made condemning racism, white supremacy, and outlining steps that he's taking in cooperation with federal and state law enforcement to crack down on these matters and do everything possible to prevent them in the future. Now, let's look at another page on his White House website. Now, this goes back 2 years earlier in 2017, also in the summer. And let's scroll down a little bit. Keep going. As I said on Saturday, okay, so first of all, okay, he said he met with the FBI director, the attorney general. Okay. The Department of Justice has opened a civil rights investigation into the deadly car attack that killed an innocent American and wounded 20 others. To anyone who acted criminally in this weekend's racist violence, you will be held fully accountable. Justice will be delivered. As I said on Saturday, we condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence. It has no place in America. As I've said many times before, no matter the color of our skin, we all live under the same laws, we all salute the same great flag, we are all made by the same Almighty God. We must love each other, show affection for each other, and unite together in condemnation of hatred, bigotry, and violence. We must rediscover the bonds of love and loyalty that bring us together as Americans. Okay, let's scroll down. Racism is evil. Now, I don't know how you can say it more plainly than that. He goes on to say, and those who cause violence in its name are criminals and thugs, including the KKK, neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and other hate groups that are repugnant to everything we hold dear as Americans. Now let me read one more paragraph. We are a nation founded on the truth that all of us are created equal. We are equal in the eyes of our Creator. We are equal under the law, and we are equal under our Constitution. Those who spread violence in the name of bigotry strike at the very core of America. All right, let's go back to the board here for a minute. Let me ask you a question, my friends. And also, if anyone is listening who is a Biden supporter or a Trump hater, let me ask the same question of you. Were those words clear? Or do they need a little bit of explanation? Were they clear? Or do they need explanation? We'll put links up. Some of you were asking about the links. Although, whitehouse.gov, let me just thank you for that question. Whitehouse.gov is an important website to go to frequently. And if you put into your Google search whitehouse.gov and then whatever topic you want, we got the good. Just put the links there. If you put in whitehouse.gov any topic, any theme like condemn racism and so forth, you'll see on the whitehouse.gov website the various talks and speeches that the president gave. But again, friends and others, weren't those words, like Katie is saying, clear as a bell? I mean, there's no ambiguity there. There's no hesitation there. There's no equivocating there. There's no uncertainty there. The president condemns racism and white supremacy. Now, why am I making a point of this? Because the Democrats and Biden and Harris want to keep lying to the American people, and the whole left movement, they continue to lie to the American people about the president, saying he does not condemn white supremacy. Well, then, who's living in the White House? And who's posting on the White House website in the name of the president? And who's giving speeches dressed up like the president? Somebody is, and somebody better find out who it is. He's been so crystal clear in word and in action, which we'll get to in a moment. But he's been so crystal clear. Is it that Biden and Harris don't know how to use Google? Is that the problem? Is it that their staff don't pay attention to what's going on at the White House? Is that the problem? Is that they're too disconnected and uninformed to know that their president condemns racism? Is that the problem? If not, what's the problem? They're lying. And they're trying to deliberately deceive the American people right up until this recent debate with Kamala Harris and Vice President Mike Pence, where she brought up again this business of Charlottesville. This happened in the president's first year in office. The Charlottesville violence. And remember the whole controversy that erupted with the removal of the statue of Robert E. Lee and so forth. And listen, people can have different opinions about all this. And the president condemned white supremacy when he also condemned Antifa. He condemned violence on both sides. But then he said, there are very good people on both sides. He was talking about the peaceful protesters because there were peaceful protesters that came. And he said there's very good people on both sides. The peaceful protesters. He condemned in English multiple times the violent protesters. So what's the problem here for people of goodwill? See, here's the point. Here's what the Trump haters don't have. They don't have goodwill. And unfortunately, we've got to say, we've talked about this, Biden and Harris don't have goodwill. The Democrats and the left in this campaign do not have goodwill. Sorry, but you can't lead a country without goodwill. Now, goodwill means that if I hear somebody say something and I'm not sure what it means, or if I don't hear somebody say something that I think they should say, goodwill means you leave your mind open, you leave your heart open to the fact that maybe, first of all, maybe you misunderstood, or maybe you missed something. And so you ask. Goodwill asks questions. Goodwill, an open heart, and an open mind, and those very much go together. Let's make this explicit here, because this is so. It's not only important for the election; it's important for all of us in our daily lives. We talk about having an open mind, and people look at that as a quality. Goodwill, having an open heart and an open mind, asks questions before it makes judgments. Anything we ever say about Biden, Harris, or the Democrats, we say it only after we have carefully researched it, asked questions, and gotten the hard evidence. But the other side doesn't give President Trump the benefit of that. Goodwill, an open heart, an open mind, asks questions before it makes judgments. What the Democrats do, they make judgments without asking questions, and then they take those negative judgments even after they know they are lies, and they spread them out to the American public. Why on earth would, in the debate, both the vice presidential and also the presidential debate that the president had with Biden, why on earth does this keep coming up as if the president called violent people good and as if he did not condemn white supremacy? Why did they have to ask President Trump in the debate, will you condemn white supremacy? See, the very asking of that question, as if he had never done it before, implies something that's not true. If you have somebody up there on a podium and you're saying, will you now, right here and now, condemn white supremacy? Well, it gives people the impression that he never did so before. But we just saw it right before our very eyes from the White House website that he did, and he's done it in word and in action multiple times. Those quotes I just showed you weren't the only times. So why are they putting him in the position of having to say, which he did say, he did condemn it right then and there. He said, yeah, sure, of course I do. But why do we have to be arguing in this way in the first place? Yeah, you know, it's all this. This election has to be about accomplishments, not accusations. It's got to be about policies, not personalities. We got to get beyond this. And those that won't get beyond this, brothers and sisters, they can't be trusted with the governance of our country. They can't. Now, talking about trust, let's touch on one more thing. Once again, for those of you that are just joining us, armyfortrump.com is the place where you can go to volunteer for the Trump campaign, making phone calls, knocking on doors. They have done more of that than any presidential campaign in American history. Would you be part of that? If you can, and also spread the word to others, but if you can take some hours of time in the next 3 weeks and do this, that would be fabulous. Fabulous way to help ensure victory. Listen, there's another thing about this election that we have to understand. This is about a power grab greater than any in American history. What am I talking about? I'm talking about proposals that have been made by the Democrats, things that have been said by leaders in the party, by leading candidates, some of the presidential candidates, things that have been said at various times, even by Biden, Harris, or implied by them. People in leadership of the Senate, like Schumer there and Pelosi in the House. This isn't just an election. This is an attempt by the Democrats at a power grab greater than ever in American history, and let me show you what I mean. They're very desperate right now because starting tomorrow, and by the way, we're going to cover it here on these channels where you're watching, the Senate hearings, the Judiciary Committee hearings for Judge Amy Coney Barrett, who will be testifying this week. She'll be having her hearing in the committee for her confirmation to the United States Supreme Court, to which President Trump has nominated her. And we'll be bringing that to you starting at 9 in the morning or whenever they get underway over there. The Democrats are looking for a power grab because they're very desperate right now that with Amy Coney Barrett's confirmation, which we expect will happen before the end of this month, there will now be a 6-3 conservative majority on the court. And boy, does that get the other side mad. It was bad enough for them that President Trump was elected. Some presidents don't get to put justices on the Supreme Court. Most presidents, even if they serve 2 terms, will only get to put 2 justices on the Supreme Court. President Trump, the way circumstances have unfolded, is only at the end of his first term, and he's already got 3 onto the third one about to go on to the Supreme Court. That's 1/3 of the Supreme Court. It's 33% of the court. So he's very, very fortunate in that regard, and he's put more other federal judges on the courts than anyone. But the Democrats want to add, here's their way out, what they see as their way out, add more seats. Now, we talked about this the other night. Add more seats to the court, add more of their own. Let's say that if the Democrats, now you can't do this just from the White House. You have to have the White House, the House, and the Senate. Okay, right now the Democrats only have the House. You have to have the White House, the House, and the Senate all at the same time to put, and then of course you have to have the majority support in order to make this work. And let's say, this is terrible. We've got a 6-3 conservative majority. Let's change the rules, and let's say that instead of the Supreme Court having 9 justices, it will have 4 more. And so if they change those rules, and then the president, Democrat president with a Democrat Senate, get to nominate and confirm 4 judges all at once, they're going to put people of their own type in there. And then all of a sudden, you have a 7-6 left-wing, liberal majority. See how easy it is? Just win the election, get the House, get the Senate, get the White House. And then this is called packing the court, adding more seats. Why? So that you can make the court ideologically what you want it to be. The question, of course, this would have to be Biden. He would have to sign, once the Congress passes this idea, he would have to sign it, and then he would have to appoint the judges. So that raises 2 questions. Does Biden intend to do this? And whether he intends to do it or not, if the situation should arise where he can name a nominee to the Supreme Court, whom would he name? Whom would he nominate? Now I ask you, are these fair questions to ask? That's my question. Are these fair questions to ask? He's asking for people's vote. When a politician asks you for a vote, presumably they're telling you about what they intend to do so that they can persuade you to vote for them. Biden is not answering either of these questions. They have been asked repeatedly. He's not answering either of these questions. And he's taking a ridiculous position. If I answer the questions, then it becomes news. What? You know, he's got to get used to what it's going to be like if he were to be president. You're aspiring to the office of president, and you're afraid of the fact that when you say something, it becomes news. I got news for you, Biden. If you were president of the United States, everything you say every day becomes news. And you're not telling us the answer to these questions because it's going to be news? What's the matter with this guy? Not only that, but Harris wouldn't answer the question either, because Vice President Pence pushed her on this the other night at the vice presidential debate. You know, do you guys, Biden-Harris administration, or maybe it's a Harris-Biden administration, you intend to do this or not? This is important to the American people. It's important to the American people. You know, FDR back in 1937 tried to do this to the Supreme Court, even though he had strong majorities of Democrats both in the House and in the Senate. The Congress voted it down. by a large proportion, the Congress voted it down. They didn't want to do this because they have the sense that the American people don't want it. And you know why the American people don't want it? Because they don't want the court to be yet another political instrument. That's what this would do. And as one of you was saying, it's not that they would put 4, they would put 40. I agree with you. They don't have to have any limit. They just want to have such complete control of the court by such a big margin that they'll always control it. And that's, of course, the idea. That's this idea of this power grab. But my goodness, why can't you just answer the question? Why can't you just be honest? Biden said, oh, well, you'll know my position about court packing the day after the election. Well, how about we know it beforehand so that people can decide whether they want to elect you in the first place? And then he had the audacity to say the other day that the voters don't have the right to know this. They don't deserve to know it. He was asked, don't the voters deserve to know it? And he said, no, they don't. The video is online. No, they don't. We don't deserve to know what you would do as president to one of the most revered institutions in our country. People believe, and we're all, frustrated with the way that the court has behaved and so forth, but still, it's the question of the stability, politically, of the court. Yes, we know at times you've got, like we said, there's a 6-3 conservative majority now with Amy Barrett going on the court. But the fact of the matter is that if the very makeup of the court is subject to political winds and waves, why wouldn't it keep switching back and forth and back and forth? It's been at 9 for 150 years. In the 80 years before that, it was switching back and forth. It started at 6, it went to 7, it went to 9, it went to 10 for a little while, it went back to 9. It's been stable at 9 for 150 years. And, there's so much instability in government and in our public life and so forth that this is why people don't want it, and they wouldn't want it. But the question is, are they going to try to do it? But that's just one area of the power grab. What else would they do? They would pack the court. See, the Democrats, they're bitter. They're angry. They're angry that they lost the 2016 election. They still can't figure out why. They never will be able to figure out why because they're disconnected with the American people. President Trump's strength is that he connected with the American people. That's why unlikely voters came out and elected him. 6 million people voted for him who had never voted before or hadn't voted in a decade or more. But the Democrats they're bitter, they're angry, they're filled with rage. And so they don't care anymore about political decorum or protocol or respect. They just want to come in with a bulldozer and take complete power in America. And you know what? The American people resist that. We do. We resist we resist tyranny. That's why our founders founded this country. And we resist any power in government taking absolute power. So here's what they want to do. And some of you are already commenting on what the other thing, you know what I'm about to tell you. All right, they would want to pack the court. They would want to get rid of, let's use the word abolish. They would want to abolish the legislative filibuster. Now, you know what the filibuster is in the U.S. Senate. It's a mechanism that gives the party that's in the minority, in fact, even just any one individual senator, quite a bit of power to slow down or even stop a bill from moving forward in the Senate. The rules of the Senate they're fascinating to study in and of themselves. It's an entire course. And it is very, very intricately set up. The Senate gives a lot of power to the minority. So right now, even though the Democrats are in a minority in the Senate, the fact of the matter is that any particular senator can choose to filibuster, and that is to conduct endless debate. Now, in other words, they're debating a particular bill, a particular proposal, legislative proposal. For example, they were debating whether to end late-term abortion in the Senate, even in this Congress. And the Republicans have the majority, and they have a majority of them willing to say we can't abort babies after 20 weeks in pregnancy. But the Democrats filibustered, and they said, well, we're not going to bring this to a vote. We're just going to, keep it as an open question. Well, how do you end a filibuster? How do you keep it from going on forever so you get to the point where you can vote on the matter? Well, they have to have another vote to close the debate. They have to have a cloture vote, as it's called. And that requires not a majority. That requires what's called a supermajority. It requires 60 votes to break a filibuster. 60 votes. The Republicans don't have 60 senators. In fact, it's hard. Not that it hasn't happened. It has happened, but it's hard for any party to have 60 out of 100 senators. That's a steep hill to climb. Again, the American people tend to instinctively introduce a balance in the system. But if you have a majority in the Senate, you could change that rule. And what the Democrats are talking about is, well, you know what? If we were to win the Senate, let's just we would get rid of the filibuster so that now we can pass through all our legislation just with the majority we have. In other words, we don't need a single Republican to come over to our side. The way it's functioning now, if the minority filibusters, it has to get several votes from the majority to come over and agree with them. And the Democrats are saying, the heck with that. Let's just get rid of the filibuster and ram our agenda through no matter how radical it is. Here's another way that they would want to grab power. New states. One of you commented on this already. You guys know what I'm talking about. For example, D.C., Puerto Rico. There's already been proposals. Let's get new states added to the United States of America. We don't have 50 states. Let's have 52. Maybe we can find a few others too. Well, what is the benefit to the power for the Democrats if they get new states? Very simple. 2 more senators. And Puerto Rico, another 2. Every state, constitutionally, has 2 senators. So, if they were in the majority, now you have to have the trifecta. You have to have the White House, the House, and the Senate. That's what they're hoping for. If they do that, see, this is why it all depends on you and me. Depends on how we vote. What I'm saying is we vote these people in. We vote Biden in. We vote in Democrat senators, and we keep voting in Democrat House members. Once they get in, they're not going to want to get out. You see, and this is why they're having this psychological projection. It's all psychological projection. When they say Donald Trump, he's not going to hand over the reins of power if he doesn't win this election. He's going to have to be dragged out of the White House. That's a fantasy. That's not who that man is. But the reason they have that fantasy, it's because it's their fantasy. It's because they're the ones that if they were to get into power, they never want to get out of power again. So they'll change all the rules to make it so that they stay in power. And you're right, somebody is commenting that the governor of Puerto Rico just endorsed Donald Trump. Now, that doesn't mean that the demography, the population would do that. I mean, if the Democrats make these into states, the expectation is based on these 2 places that these would be Democrat senators. The people would be selecting Democrat senators. There's 2 other things. Illegal immigrants in this country. What would the Democrats do if Biden gets in? He gets his Congress and everything. 11 million people, give them the right to vote. You know why these people want all these folks crossing across the border without any kind of limitation? You know why the Democrats want that? Because they're votes. That's why they want it. Because they're votes. And if they are in power and they all of a sudden take 11 million people in this country who didn't take the legal way to get in and say, hey, we're going to give you folks the right to vote, well then, what do you think? How do you think those people are going to vote by and large? Their eyes are looking at 11 million new Democrat votes. Well, then they would win all the elections. You see, this is what these are power-hungry, un-American people, this Democrat Party that we're dealing with right now. They are un-American. They're not interested in the will of the people. They're interested in power. President Donald Trump, on the other hand, is committed to giving power back to the American people, and he has proven that time and time again. One more thing they would do, these Democrat, anti-American Democrats. And I'll never stop saying that. It's true, it's anti-American. We're not going to apologize for that. Let me move these words up. I want to show you one more thing that requires a little bit more explanation. And thanks for sticking with me. I'm glad that I know you're finding this helpful and interesting. Thank you for your nice comments. Power grab. You know what the other part of their power grab scheme is? You ready for this one? Because they're really sore about this. Because this is how they lost in the election of not only 2016, but back in 2000, George W. Bush's first election. They want to abolish what? You guys know. They want to abolish the Electoral College. Now, study the Constitution of the United States. And it describes how we elect the President of the United States. It is not by a national popular vote. In other words, all the citizens from coast to coast go to the polls. They vote either for Donald Trump or for Joe Biden or for any of the multiple other candidates, smaller parties and lesser known candidates. In fact, most of them we've never heard of their names before, that are running for president. But the voter goes to the polls, they vote, they choose the president, and you just tally up the votes from coast to coast to all 50 states, and whoever gets the most votes wins. But people think that that's the way it works, or they think that that's the way it should work. But that's not the way the founding fathers set up this country. They set up a union of 50 states, a republic, the United States, plural, of America. Not the United State of America, but the United States. So in other words, they set up a system of electing the president where every state would have a say. Now, it does depend to some extent on the population of that state. They count up the representatives as well as the 2 senators from each state. Each state gets 2 senators, no matter how, whether it's as big a population as California or as small as Rhode Island, they all get equal weight as states in the United States Senate. And by that very same principle, we have the Electoral College, whereby when you vote for president, you're actually voting for the electors from your state. And that slate of electors that you choose will then go ahead and cast their votes in the beginning of January for the president. The reason this is essential is the following. Let's go make ourselves a little room up here. I want to keep all these items here, this power grab. The reason the Electoral College is essential is this. Let's just consider some numbers. The population of New York City alone is greater than the population of the entire state of Wisconsin. And the population of Los Angeles, just the city of Los Angeles, is greater than the population of the entire state of Iowa. The population of New York and Los Angeles combined is greater than Ohio. And the population of New York and Los Angeles combined is greater than the state of Michigan. Individually. This is greater than this is greater than this. Okay, so you realize what that means? That if we had a national popular vote, if we didn't have the this is what the Democrats want to do. They want to abolish the Electoral College. And by the way, some people think we don't have the right to talk about this stuff. That's a lot of garbage. Because I wear this. If I were to take this off, I could talk about this stuff. Because I wear this, we can't talk about this stuff. You all know that's ridiculous, except for a couple of people that don't seem to be getting it. If we were to have a national popular vote, why would a presidential candidate have to worry about Wisconsin, Iowa, or Ohio, or Wisconsin, or Iowa, or Michigan? They could forget about those states altogether. They would just have to campaign in New York City and Los Angeles to, instead of going and campaigning in Ohio. And if they don't have to campaign just this here, if they don't have to campaign in Ohio, or they don't have to campaign in Wisconsin or in Iowa, if they only have to worry about getting more and more votes in New York City and Los Angeles, because after all, they're all going to give them the actual victory, well then, neither do they have to try to win over those people, neither do they have to appeal to the interests of those people, the cultures, the subcultures, the particular types of industry, the farmers. They don't necessarily have to take into account the concerns of those people. They don't have to try to build coalitions. And you see, here's the absurdity of that would be that here they are, they're going to end up as president governing the whole country, including Ohio and Iowa and Wisconsin and Michigan. They're going to end up governing the people in those states without having to appeal to them, without even having to understand them, without trying to compromise a little bit with them. The genius of the Electoral College is that it forces somebody who wants to govern the whole country to get to know the whole country and to win over the various different demographics and cultures and subcultures, different kinds of industries, different kinds of living conditions represented by the whole country. With the Electoral College system, no matter how many people end up living in New York and Los Angeles, New York only has a fixed number of electoral votes, and California only has its number of electoral votes, and it's the electoral votes that count. Now, they have more electoral votes than these other states because they have more population, but there's still a cap at any given time, so that still the candidate, they can win New York and California. In fact, do you know that 20% of the vote that Hillary Clinton got 4 years ago was from the urban areas of New York and California? 20% of the vote that Hillary Clinton got, think about this, was from the urban areas of New York and California. So if you were to abolish the Electoral College, well, the candidate doesn't have to, care at all about any place other. You can just camp out in California, camp out in Los Angeles and win the election. I hope that makes it clear to you. And I hope you also understand from all of this how far the Democrat Party has come from the vision of our founding fathers. And that's why I say they're un-American. They rip up the Constitution. They want to throw it away. They don't care. They don't care. And brothers and sisters, it's because we do care that we have to be very well informed about the dangers of the Democrats. And we have to be very strong in telling our fellow citizens that these people are dangerous. This party is dangerous to America. We are a republic, not a democracy, as one of you is pointing out. Our founders were not interested in a pure democracy, which is that, okay, just everybody coast to coast, just vote, and we'll take whatever the majority says. It's more complicated than that. And it should be, because certain things are beyond the will of the majority. A majority of people cannot say that abortion is okay. No majority of people can legitimize the killing of a baby. And again, our country is very diverse. The people of Iowa do matter. The people of Ohio do matter. The people of every state matter. And the Electoral College makes sure that they matter. But again, all these other things, they're just power hungry, these Democrats. They want to get rid of the Electoral College. They want to pack the court. They want to abolish the filibuster. They want to grant, get voting rights to all these illegals, get millions of more votes, get two new states, get 4 new senators. And boy, then they will hold on to power. It'll become a one-party country. Is that what Americans want? A one-party country? Especially the party of death and open borders, high taxes, unfair trade deals, globalism, socialism, repression of religious freedom, and the massive killing of the unborn, no respect for law and order, defunding the police. Are these the kind of people we want to have complete power in America? Let's go back here and sit down. I don't think so. And I don't think you think so as well. Well, thank you, friends. So many of you saying great things. Dictatorships, one of you is pointing out. California is already, John is saying, a one-party system, and it's not pleasant. It's not good. I know what you're saying, John, and we have a lot of supporters in California, a lot of activity in California throughout my entire time with Priests for Life, and always love coming out there. And you know what? So many of you there in California. I know we have a big part of our audience actually is watches from your state of California. And you guys have so many great people out there. It's a one-party system, but that doesn't properly represent, does it, the great conservative, strong Republican, pro-life people that are up and down that state. I've been all up and down your state. Big places, big and small, the countries, the cities, the countrysides, the cities, the desert. Great, strong pro-life Republican presence there in California, and I rejoice in that, and I thank you for your faithfulness. Let's see. I want to see a couple of your comments here that we can respond to. People thanking me for the explanation. My pleasure. I love doing it. Thank you for listening. I miss you at OSA. Okay, who was saying that? Yeah, OSA, Operation Save America. Thank you for saying that, Michelle. Oh, Michelle, yes. Thanks for watching. Operation Save America, friends. Look that up. They'll do a lot of great pro-life work and beautiful rallies that we've had and events throughout the country. Look forward to joining you. I look forward to joining you again out there on the road and at some of these events. Okay, let's go down and see some of the new comments that are coming in. Marcus, very good comment. Democrats are anti-religion. I don't understand people of faith voting for evil like that. Marcus, neither do I. I mean, I think that it goes back to what we were saying at the beginning of the program, which was that these Democrat candidates are not honest. They like to attract the people of faith, but they don't like to tell the people of faith what their policies really are, because those policies suppress the faith. President Trump has done so much to make it easier for people of faith to live their lives in this country. Do you know that the president established an office, a division of conscience and religious freedom under the Office of Civil Rights under the Department of Health and Human Services? He established this at the beginning of his term so that people of faith who felt that they were being discriminated against in the workplace, for example, nurses who felt that they were being forced to perform abortions, could issue a complaint and have the laws that are already on the books, they've been on the books since the 1970s, to protect the consciences of our citizens, including healthcare workers, could be enforced. In the 8 years before President Trump established this special office, in 8 years' time, you know how many complaints came to the Office of Civil Rights about violations of conscience where people of faith felt that their consciences were being violated? You know how many complaints came to that office? 10 over the space of 8 years. Then President Obama started this new office. Now, let me go to the board. You can actually make a complaint on behalf of yourself or of a third party if you believe that your rights are being violated or suspect that they are. You don't even have to know for sure. The website is hhs.gov, that's the Department of Health and Human Services, /OCR, Office of Civil Rights. And you'll see a page there, a button, you'll see a link where you can make a complaint. So, once the president established this office, again, now remember, in the previous 8 years, under Obama and Biden, by the way, devout Catholic that he is, only 10 complaints had been made. President Obama opens this division for conscience and religious freedom and says, we want to know if our faithful religious believers feel like they're being persecuted or forced to violate their conscience. In the year 2018 alone, you know how many complaints came in? 1,300 complaints. Just in 2018. This was needed, wasn't it? This division was needed, and it's functioning today, and I know the people who work over there. It's functioning today to help our fellow citizens. And they take action, too. Remember, it's the executive branch of government. The executive branch, we learn in grade school, is responsible for enforcing the laws. Congress passes the laws, president signs the bills into law, but then the executive branch enforces the laws. There was a nurse in Vermont, University of Vermont Medical Center. And by the way, that website I told you about, they'll also show you some of the enforcement activities that they've done. This nurse had indicated already her objections to performing abortions. She said, I don't want to do it. They forced her to perform an abortion anyway, participate in it. That does profound damage to a person's soul and psyche. They forced her. And she reported this complaint, and the administration took action in regard to that University of Vermont Medical Center and issued a statement of violation to them and told them, you've got to comply with the law, because they were already breaking the law. Remember, what's happening here, the president is not making law. Congress makes law. The president is enforcing the law. So, Catholics, California for Trump, yes. You got a lot of good California people here, like we were saying. Bruce from Australia. God bless you, Bruce. We love Trump 2020 in Australia. I visited your country. So I can't believe it's already been 25 years ago. I got to come back. But what a great time I had there. Thank you for all your faithfulness there, my friends in Australia. Tracy is saying EWTN has a great documentary, Wolf in Sheep's Clothing. Yes, that is very good. Saul Alinsky and the tactics that are followed there, but tactics followed by these Democrat politicians. Thanks for mentioning that. Let's see, what else do we have here? Latinos for Trump. Amen. Virginia loves Trump. Yes, it does. Washington State for Trump. We've got a lot of different states. Florida, that's my home state now, right here. Portland, Oregon, thank you for watching. Minnesota. Hey, Minnesota can very well go for President Trump this time. He could win the state of Minnesota. And Brian, Pennsylvania, we got to get Pennsylvania. But Minnesota could actually go for him, and that would be the first time it goes for a Republican since 1972. And, it's moving in that direction, very, very, really and truly. So, friends, thank you all for listening, following my explanations here tonight. We always want to give you helpful information. Listen, here's the main thing, as I said at the beginning. Sign up for that armyfortrump.com. We've got to reach more voters. And each of us in our own way, even if we're not doing the phone calling and the door knocking in conjunction with the campaign, let's do everything we can to reach as many voters as we can with all this information. It's a numbers game now. Let's get the numbers. Let's get the victory. This is what we have to do, and together we can all do it. So God bless you. May the Lord send you his Holy Spirit. May he give you peace and his guidance at all times. May he give you the answer to all your prayers. Keep all your loved ones safe. Keep you healthy. And may he make you strong advocates for the unborn and for America. And may he bless you, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Now, tomorrow morning I'll be with you for the 10 a.m. Mass. I may throw in a couple extra broadcasts here and there. We'll be covering the events in the Senate tomorrow for Judge Amy Coney Barrett. We'll be having more to say about that. It's Columbus Day. We're going to show you tomorrow the proclamation of the President for Columbus Day. And then tomorrow night, you're going to see me here starting in the late afternoon, probably around 4 o'clock. From Right Side Broadcasting, I'm going to be with them tomorrow evening, just about an hour away from here, with President Trump in person. We're going to have a rally in Sanford, Florida, and I'll be helping with the commentary on that rally on TV with Right Side Broadcasting and brought to you right here on these channels where you're watching. So let's look forward to a great rally tomorrow night. Happy Columbus Day tomorrow, and we will talk to you tomorrow. Father Frank Pavone here of Priests for Life. God bless you all.
Hello, I'm Evangelist Alveda King. Day by day, my work with Priests for Life and Father Frank Pavone provides me with many opportunities to speak up for the unborn, whether on television and radio or in conferences with pastors or with government leaders. In order to accomplish all this work, we rely on the donations of individuals like you who believe in this cause and want to help us save lives. May I ask you to support us generously? Go today to prolifegift.org and give as generous a gift as you can. I appreciate it personally and will pray for you each day.
I think we have Richard Lee, we have Jim Garlow, and we have Father Frank Pavone. Someplace they were in the audience, so I appreciate you. I appreciate you.
Follow him, Father Frank Pavone, Fr Frank Pavone, on Twitter. He is the National Director of Priests for Life. Please go to priestsforlife.org.